we were in a non-evacuation area, so we did stay here. We were fully prepared for the storm. We had more gasoline than you could imagine. We had a generator. We had everything set up, ready to deal with the worst of the storm. This area is prone to flooding, but usually it's of the minor variety, some water in the crawl space, and that's, usually about it. About 11:30 in the evening, the power went out. Right after that, about 10 minutes later, got a text from our next door neighbors, and they had just taken a tree to their tool shed. And my neighbor was outside, noticed that the ground was really very soft, spongy, started looking around with a flashlight, and the water was coming up very quickly behind the houses. So our neighbors contacted us and said, hey, look, you might want to put a flashlight into the backyard and take a look at what's going on. The water's coming up. So we threw open that sliding door right near you, right there, and we looked out in the backyard, and by that time we had about 3 feet of water in the backyard. And about 10 minutes later, as we were starting to move some papers and stuff, my wife said, oh my goodness, she's like, don't forget the generators in the backyard. So I went around the side of the house, and by that time the water was already coming up to the side of the house. I waded through about knee-deep water, got the generator, luckily pulled it through. As I'm pulling around the side of the house, there was this big surge of water, and the water is just following after me. We have a crawl space opening on the south side of the house, and water was just pouring over that galvanized wall into the crawl space opening. I was able to get the generator into the house. Amazing what adrenaline will do with 180 pounds. Hoofed it right in. And I said to my wife right at that moment, we have to leave, and we have to leave right now. And then we did not come back to the house until the following day, Tuesday afternoon, about 1 o'clock, after the second high tide had gone through, about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning.
So what did you find?
What we found is what you see, except it was obviously a completely done house. This room right here was a brand new addition that we had enjoyed for 3 months before we lost it. And when we came into the house, the water had at least receded from the house most of the way. Crawl space, of course, water was still filled right up to the floorboards and the rafters and everything like that. Depending upon where you went in the house, if you went further south where the family room is, former converted garage, the lowest point in the house, that had about almost a foot of water in it. If you went further, this new addition that sits at a little higher elevation had about 3 inches of water, but just enough water to obviously damage everything. Walked into the house, the amount of dirt, debris, the stench, all that kind of stuff. Your typical, I guess, flood experience when the water starts to recede. Once we got inside, though, you start to survey the damage. Anything that was low-lying, bookcases, obviously floors, furniture, things like that, all that stuff, unfortunately, wound up getting destroyed. We did not in any way, shape, or form think that water would come this far up the street. What we were expecting was that we would be more concerned about torrential rains, which they were calling for, but those never showed up. I think the total rainfall from the storm in this area was about 2 inches. But in terms of the water, again, what we thought really was going to be rain and wind. And what wound up happening was this just incredible flood surge that came out of nowhere. We did have a go-to box, and we did at least have a plan of action if we needed to go, although we didn't know where we were going to go. We just assumed we'd go to a emergency shelter here in Brick. The one emergency shelter that was open, and there was only one open, which really made life very difficult for a lot of us in Brick. I was at the Brick Memorial High School. We could not get to that one because it was flooded. So the thing that really took us by surprise was just the amount of water, and the surge just was beyond words.